So I wanted to talk about code review. If you have the experience of working at a company that has poor internal tooling, you'll probably find that your code reviews are highly focused on small syntactic issues that could be fixed by a linter or a formatter. And it can become quite a painful experience for a junior developer who hasn't got a lot of confidence to try and submit to a code base that's like this. I once worked with a developer who would have constant issues with uppercase, lowercase, naming variables, all this kind of stuff. And I felt bad for them. I would say, look, I don't really care, but if you put this through code review, you're going to get aggressive comments. And that's just not what you want in the workplace. And so, this sort of over focus on small syntactic problems isn't just a pain for developers, it's also a potential risk for your project. If you can remove those points of contention around small variable names and all these problems, you actually bring more light to the larger problems like structural, architectural, performance, and security concerns. So I've written a small example JavaScript component. Um, this is React without TypeScript, which I'm sure some of you are already angry. But let's do a quick code review on it. So this is a user profile component. It takes in a user ID and outputs some info about the user. Let's have a quick look at some of the problems here. And if you want to pause and look through it yourself beforehand, go ahead. But I'll try and spot some of the main problems I see from a syntactic point of view. So we have an object here called project builder, which depending on the approach, we might say, hey, look, objects like this should have an uppercase name. So let's say that is a rule in our project. We can say line 3, project builder should be project builder. Okay, now our user profile is taking in a user ID. This could be coming from an API, so maybe it's lowercase or snake case because the API put it out in that format. But let's say that this should be camel case. Camel case. And we'll add a question mark just so we're not too aggressive. Sorry, that is line 6. I don't know what I'm saying, line 4. Now we're coming in here. We have our state set up, and we can see that the developers put set in a uppercase format, which isn't correct. So line 8 should be set user info. And then we're going through our network request. This is a use effect, which has no dependencies, so it should run once. We've already addressed set user info, so that's okay. This block looks all right. Although I believe we should have a semicolon on line 18. So I'll say line 18, semicolon. Get project hours worked. This is snake case when it should be camel case. So line 20, camel case. So we're doing user info projects reduce. And then we're taking in an accumulator. We have a 0 as the starting point. We get a new project builder for this. We're missing a semicolon here, so let's put that in. Line 22, semicolon. We're getting the hours, doing a math.round on the milliseconds multiplied by whatever that is, 3600. So we could say, okay, well, look, this should probably be extracted to a function, so we know what we're trying to do here without at a glance. So we could say extract to convert to hours or similar. And then we're returning the accumulator plus the number of hours calculated for that project. Okay. We're missing another semicolon, line 25. And another semicolon potentially on line 26. So you can see we're getting quite a list of things here to send back as feedback. If there's no user info, return a div with the text loading. Okay, That's probably fine. And we're putting the name, the organization name. Again, organization name should be uppercase. Organization name, camel case, sorry. And actually in here we could say, like line 21, let's go back here. We should really use a more descriptive name. So P should be project. And similarly down here, no, we look good otherwise. We could complain that info isn't a great name either, but let's leave it at that for now. So after that, then we output our user profile. We're actually missing another semicolon, line 35. Great, that's a lot of feedback for the developer to go back and work on. Now this is all stuff that should be fixed, but most of it could just be fixed by a linter. Like any of this semicolon camel case can be enforced by ESLint or Prettier. The only thing really here that we would have as actual feedback would be extract to a method, essentially. So, hey, this is a bit of a calculation on a line. Let's put a method in there that'll do that for us. But what we haven't spotted here is that we have a get project hours worked call inside this JSX component. And so this will be rerun every time the page is redrawn, or this component is redrawn. And so we're doing this whole reduce, create a new project builder, do all this kind of stuff every time the page is re-rendered, which could be very frequent if the user's interacting with the parent component or something of the sort. And so this is ultimately the most important issue, line 33. This is the only one that actually affects how this code runs. But we spent all this time talking about small syntactic problems. And so our tool set, the tooling we're using, doesn't obviously include automated linting, formatting, any of that stuff. And so we've ended up in a spot where we're now giving, what is this, 11 items of feedback, and we haven't spotted the actual issue. I know this might sound a bit nitpicked, or a bit cherry-picked rather, but I have had this legitimately happen in work. I don't get to review every PR, and there have been times where we'll have a PR with 20 pieces of feedback, and then it goes to production, and you realize, oh crap, someone's created a problem that wasn't caught in code review. And if this was the only piece of feedback, like if this here, extract this to a use effect or a use memo, was the only piece of feedback, that person would go, oh, okay, let me fix that because that's kind of important. But when it's wrapped up with all this other stuff, suddenly it's like one more item on a checklist, and they sort of go, I think I've covered everything. Let's go ahead with it. And so you should really improve your tooling if you find this kind of stuff is coming up a lot. Should implement a linter, implement a formatter, really get your tool set down so that this kind of feedback doesn't need to exist. The second the user saves this piece of code, it'll format it, it'll highlight all these problems. And that will allow you to work a lot faster and a lot more consistently and spot actual problems. Have a good one.